Hello, this is Nabila Rahman. I'm the Digital Transformation Strategist in United News of Bangladesh, UNB, and I've been holding leadership roles in the tech industries for decades. Today, I'm very excited to launch our second webinar of the Tech Collective, and the topic is Metaverse. Metaverse is a hot topic right now, but what is it really? The Metaverse is not yet a concrete reality, while the vision of it is a 3D immersive world where we will be spending a lot of time socializing, working, entertaining, learning, etc. It is the combination of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, gaming, cryptocurrencies, social media, and much, much more. And with FB rebranding as Meta, it is now a blanket term for a new wave of ideas after a pandemic that rewrote our definition of virtual. So without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce my co-host, Sam Bretzfield, who is a tech entrepreneur living in Bangladesh for many, many years, and will be co-hosting with me in this webinar. Sam, very excited to have you. Please introduce yourself and our very special guest, who's not only a metaverse expert, but is leading and doing exciting things in this field.
Nabila, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here today with you, our second webinar. This is so exciting. My name is Sam Bretzfield for the audience. Really happy to be here. I'm a serial entrepreneur with many years of experience in the tech industry. I've been living in Bangladesh. I'm super excited today to have Jeremy Whitt with us. Jeremy is the CEO of the Promethean Group. Jeremy is a successful entrepreneur, an angel investor, and so much more. A fun fact about Jeremy actually is a part and a member of the Mensa Society. So Jeremy, without further ado, happy that you're here and welcome to the Tech Collective. We're going to talk about the metaverse today.
Very excited about it. The metaverse is super hot right now. And so happy to join in and educate your audience.
Absolutely. So Jeremy, tell us, what is the metaverse? You know, we keep hearing all these, metaverse this and AR that, VR. I mean, what is the metaverse to you, and really what does that mean?
The metaverse was originally, well, let's start with the derivative there. So Meta. Meta, unfortunately, or fortunately perhaps, is not the company formerly named Facebook. Meta actually is a computer term, and it's short for metadata. And metadata is literally defined as data about data. And so what does that mean? Well, what it means is that direct data would be like you have a car in your parking lot. Metadata would be is if I rendered that car in some form of art and then showed that to someone else in a schematic so that we could design a great garage around that. And so that's the difference between data and metadata. Metadata is literally just the definition of data about data. So what's metaverse? Well, metaverse is exactly the same, originally at least, before, companies like Facebook tried to hijack the term. But metaverse is literally a space or a concept. It doesn't actually even have to be a space. We'll get into that in a little bit. But metaverse is simply a digital twin or data about data. And so you have visual data, you have audio data, and you have 3D data that you can all combine together to be data about data, or this 3D data, audio data, visual data that is about an actual experience or an actual place, or maybe something completely imagined.
Interesting. And so we think about data upon data. I mean, but really at the core, I mean, how do you think the metaverse, quote unquote, is really going to, maybe perhaps change our daily routines or, alter what we do socially online? I mean, what does that really look like? I mean, is it how is this going to work?
Yeah, great question, Sam. So I always like to go back to analogies in past technology innovations, especially disruptive. And so the one thing that the internet did back in the mid 90s is it broke down geographic walls. And so what it allowed you to do is it allowed you to jump from one location, whether it's a brand, whether it's a business, whether it's a shop, whether it's an entertainment venue. It allowed you to move from one location to another location and experience nearly that entire brand experience without physically moving. You're sitting in front of exactly the same browser or viewport, and you are able to go from one brand experience to another brand experience. Very different from television too, because the internet was interactive. In television or radio, it's streaming, it's one way, it's something called broadcast, and it's controlled by a central point sent out, and the viewer or the consumer only is able to consume, not control. But when the internet came out in the mid 90s, it allowed end users to control that experience. Therefore, they could control through the magic of something called hyperlinking. And hyperlinking, you may not know what that is, but you use it every single day, and it's anything you can click. So any click is a hyperlink. And that hyperlink is the magic, because it allowed that consumer to choose their experience. And they were able to move from brand experience to brand experience, from product to product, from site to site, and control that. And that broke down geographic barriers. That's the whole difference. It's absolutely the whole difference, because not only does breaking down geographic barriers do magical things, but it also creates this egalitarian society, which is something very apropos to countries such as Bangladesh, because a Bangladesh organization can create a presence completely driven from your native country that is experienced anywhere on the planet. And so that was revolutionary in the mid 90s. And of course, we've taken it after 25 years, we've taken it to almost as extreme, to the next layer. And that's what we call Web3. And so what Web3 does is it takes that same concept of breaking down geographic barriers, but it breaks down experience barriers.
Got it.
That's the whole difference.
So what's the difference between Web3 and the metaverse? Is there a difference?
Well, that's a great question. So obviously the answer is yes and no, depending on who you're asking. So metaverse has various different uses. Let's not even get into meanings. It has various different uses. The first one is the technical definition that I kind of highlighted on earlier. It's data about data. It's digital twin, whether it's a digital twin experience, digital twin space, digital twin personality, avatar, and things of that nature. Metaverse also has morphed into a marketing concept. And for those of you who don't believe that metaverse is a marketing concept, you may not be paying attention. It's absolutely a marketing concept. And the third one is that metaverse is actually a thing. So not only is it a concept, but it's also a thing, and it's also designed to mean a 3D immersive experience, which is absolutely Web3.
All right, so are we going to have all these like little avatars and like little worlds, and Sam is going to be able to enter a world? I mean, what does that look like? And we talk about, virtual reality, augmented reality. Am I going to be wearing am I wearing like a big Oculus headset? I mean, how am I viewing this space, and what does it look like?
And is anybody doing it is another question. We don't want to wear the headset, and there are all these is anybody successfully doing it with all these gadgets?
Yeah. So I was on another panel where a company, I'm not sure that I can give out their name because they are pre-revenue, but there's a company out there that's doing holographics. In the medical industry, they've done virtual reality with respect to protein folding and things of that nature for probably 20 years. The metaverse has been used, with the headsets and things of that nature in gaming for probably 30 years. Most recently, it's really taken off. But I'd really like to challenge your audience to expand their definition of metaverse from just virtual reality worlds that you have to wear a headset. That is, in my definition, it is absolutely the metaverse. But I also expand the metaverse to include, because remember, it's just data about data. I also expand the metaverse to include things like enabling disabled individuals that maybe are blind. And then they are able to put on not a headset, but headphones. And then from an audio perspective, they would be able to experience. Remember, this is just a brand experience. They're able to experience different worlds from an audio perspective, interacting through voice, things of that nature. Then there's also the entire category of augmented reality. And anybody who does not consider augmented reality part of the metaverse probably has something to gain by that position, because in my definition, augmented reality is probably the use of the metaverse that will take off. I actually still think right now, because of several technical as well as sociological, as well as just actual biological reasons, that virtual reality spaces that most people associate with the metaverse is probably going to be more niche for the next few years, if not 5 years. But what will, and what already has taken off like wildfire, is augmented reality. We have augmented reality right now from the perspective of technically your backup camera is augmented reality with the little lines that it draws on it. And heads-up displays for fighter pilots have been around since the 80s. That's augmented reality. And then, of course, anything that you do with filters and Snapchat and things of that nature with Instagram, that's augmented reality as well. So we're using the metaverse right now. It's just that we don't call it that. We only have associated these virtual reality worlds with the metaverse right now. But in fact, Web3 and augmented reality are not only pervasive right now, but I actually believe that augmented reality is the true use case of the metaverse.
Got it. And so, the metaverses that I think about today, and I look at my little boy, right? He plays Fortnite. He might be on Minecraft, but there's also places like the Sandbox and Decentraland, and Meta. Facebook is building something. Are we transversing through these different worlds? Are they all connected through blockchain and through the use of NFTs? I mean, how do you envision that happening? And is it that I'm in different places and I'm kind of moving around, or do you think that all of this interconnects at some point in the future, similar to how the internet kind of came together?
Well, there you just stole the answer there, Sam. That's brilliant. Exactly. Exactly. So everything has been done before. So think about television and radio. You eventually, when you first got into television and radio, you had to go to a channel. Some of you may not remember that television used to be broadcast on airwaves, and you had to tune the channel.
I remember. Literally, click.
You were literally tuning the radio frequency oscillators inside of televisions to pick up a particular radio frequency, and they would amplify that signal, and then you would be able to watch a network. And then there were anywhere from 3 to 10 to 20 channels or something along those lines. And then we got into basically random access television, and that was called cable. And that put everything together in bundles. And that took off in the 80s. And then we had something called on demand. And that's when we got into streaming. And that put everything together again. And so what you saw was the early stages of a point broadcast social content source that then became random access. I could pick any one of them from a cable package. Then it became on demand. And then it put entirely the power of browsing all of that content into the consumer's hands. Exactly the same thing happened on the internet. We originally started out where back in 1995, for those of you who were around, the websites were almost never connected together. I don't know that very many of your audience can remember that there was a time before Google. And that was before 1998. So how did people get around in pre-1998? In fact, Google didn't even really take off until 2000. So how did people get around before that? Well, there were a couple of ways. There was, you would call up your buddy. And so let's say that let's say that you're Tommy Hilfiger, and you wanted your website to link to, I don't know, Louis Vuitton or something along those lines. Well, you call them up and say, hey, I'm going to link to you, and if you promise to link back to me, and that way our customers can go back and forth. And so the next iteration of that was in early 95. And then very quickly, this concept called a link tree came up. And the link tree was this little widget that you put at the bottom of your homepage.
I remember that.
And what it did is it had a forward and a back button, just a brilliant concept. And what it was trying to mimic television. And in television, you had this channel up and channel down button. And the concept for a link tree is that if you hit the arrow to the right, it would go to the next channel, which was another web page. And then you would just cycle through these. And these link trees got huge, hundreds of pages, and they would all participate in this link tree. And that it started to connect. It was this fabric that connected all of these websites. And this is early 95, 96. But then search engines came out, directories like Yahoo came out. AOL was a directory.
AOL was big.
So do you see a lot of the same things that we saw, I remember the internet, from the early days. It was Prodigy, it was CompuServe. In fact, CompuServe and Prodigy were, probably some of the first, quote unquote internet that I ever saw. I remember the day that the browser came out, and I remember exactly what you're talking about. You think that same kind of concept that we saw with the browser is going to happen with the, quote unquote metaverse, and
that's exactly right.
Changing the channel, going to different.
That's exactly
really
right.
Interesting. How does
it's going to take the same path?
How does crypto play a role, though?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So to answer your other question, yes, the metaverse is going to take exactly the same path as television, as the internet did. It's just we're in Web3. How does crypto play a purpose? Well, what did we say earlier about what the internet did? The internet broke down geographic barriers. What's the number one problem with currency in today's world? Well, I don't know if you guys have ever from Bangladesh tried to make a transaction with, say, PayPal or something along those lines. It's an order of magnitude harder to make a transaction, whether it be through bank, even PayPal, in an overseas country with the United States, or vice versa, or between, let's say, Bangladesh and the UK or something along those lines. There are geographic barriers that prevent a seamless and easy flow of commerce. Well, cryptocurrency, just like how the internet broke down geographic barriers for content, cryptocurrency is breaking down, already has broken down geographic barriers for commerce. And
that'll be amazing. Yeah. That's our biggest
vital
blockage
for the metaverse.
Yeah, that's the biggest blockage right now. And so the next question would be with the policymakers, global policymakers in Bangladesh, what kind of guidelines that we need to put for Bangladesh so we can have this accessibility of cryptocurrency so that we can buy from Amazon or wherever with one single currency? Because right now that's the challenge. I need a dollar account. I need PayPal. I think PayPal is about to come to Bangladesh. It's still not here yet. So
I think they've been working on that for years.
Yeah. They've been saying they're coming, but we can't even use PayPal. So we have the money, but we can't spend it from USA, from UK. So how do the government, the Bangladesh, regulation, policymakers, how do they start thinking differently to change and for us to spend?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's kind of an oxymoron to say what you should say, because everybody's going to say, well, we're using something like agile methodology. You get everybody together and everybody coordinates and collaborates, and you come up with a system of cryptocurrency. You come up with data type definitions. You come up with standards and things of that nature. That's actually counter to the entire concept of decentralized cryptocurrency. And so there actually is not a way of doing it in an efficient, streamlined, near instant way. It's going to take time. So the first thing that every government organization, whether it's Bangladesh or whether it's South Africa or whether it's the UK or the United States, the first thing that they need to do is education. Without a doubt, it's probably the biggest problem right now that cryptocurrency faces. And it's probably the single most important thing for government or NGOs to do right now is education. There's so much misinformation and there's so little knowledge out there right now. So the first step is education. it needs to be taught in schools. It needs to be taught in universities, and it needs to be taught in business. The second thing that everyone or every sovereign organization or sovereign country, as well as government organization, needs to do is to start thinking policy. And to start thinking policy, they need to, I hate to say this because I'm not a committee person, but they need to have a cryptocurrency committee. They need to have somebody that owns it, because right now the people who own it have other interests and other distractions in mind. And so that's the second big step, is you got to create policy through a dedicated source, dedicated. And by the way, that is exactly the same thing that you need to do if you are a company in, whether it's United States, UK, Bangladesh, Pakistan, wherever you are. You need to, as a government organization, you need to start thinking about education. Now, let's say that you're not adept at education. You don't have the infrastructure for that. Yes, but you have treasury fund allocations, and you need to be funding education across the board on this and education sources. You need to start creating policy, and that starts with, I suggest, a secretary of cryptocurrency, something along those lines. You need to have a head that is in charge of all of that. And the third thing you need to do is infrastructure. And I could go on for another couple hours on infrastructure, but those are the three things that I not only think every government organization should do, it's also everything that any NGO should be thinking about. And it's the three first steps.
Why NGOs? Why do you think NGOs need to be learning more about crypto, and how does that benefit them?
It doesn't necessarily benefit them, it benefits the constituency. What's an NGO do? An NGO almost always has some altruistic purpose, but it also spans cross interest. And I can't stress that enough. And so NGOs could, if they wanted to, they may or may not, who knows, it's a great opportunity, but they could play a vital role in the dissemination of good information, as well as great knowledge and education, as well as infrastructure. Got it. So that's that third point that we talked about.
All right, switching
is what he means with NGOs, because they go door to door in different villages and, on the root level. So if they can impart that knowledge about cryptocurrency, how it benefits, because they're going door to door collecting loans, they have the relationship, right? I think it's a very brilliant way to look into things on how to escalate things faster and accelerate, because you're actually going door to door in villages, in rural places where probably there's very little communication, or they have computers now that we have no idea, and they're probably playing games.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, Jeremy, virtual land sales. Should I be making investments and buying yachts in the metaverse, or is that totally a fad? And
is it a digital yacht, Sam? Or can you actually go on a ride, or we can be sitting here and you can say, hey, Nabila,
I'll tell you,
let's pop the champagne and let's go on a ride, but I'm actually in the metaverse.
In the metaverse.
I don't like it. I don't like this immersive technology. I want to go in the yacht. You buy the physical yacht.
So there's the short answer is it's the greater fool theory. And the greater fool theory, smart people will say, oh, it's the greater fool theory, you shouldn't buy. Well, yeah, but are you the greater fool? Because if you're the first greater fool, you make a lot of money. It's only the last greater fool that loses. And so the answer is, well, with any Ponzi scheme, or not Ponzi scheme, I apologize, the wrong word. With any pyramid scheme, if you're in early, you make a lot of money. And so should someone buy virtual land, the question is, how long will the music run? And if the music is going to run more than 1 or 2 cycles after you buy, then you should absolutely buy. But if it doesn't, you are the greater fool. And so
let me ask you a
question that you asked.
But let me ask this. I mean, if we think about virtual land compared to real estate, right? Actual land on the ground, right? Do you ever see a future where people are buying virtual land, but then renting out that land, acting kind of as a landlord tenant type of situation, but in the metaverse? I mean, do you think that's possible?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you own any domain names? Let me ask you this. Have you ever rented out a domain name in the form of hosting a website for a client? That's renting a domain name. Have you ever done that? course you have. And of course, the same thing is going to happen with NFT land sales. Exactly the same thing. And exactly the same thing happened in 1995. In late 1995, 96, I realized that this was going to be a land grab. And as a young entrepreneur, I went out and bought 100 domains. I unfortunately sold them for a tidy profit, and I should have kept them all. But I did keep one, Whitt.com, which is my last name. And so I've owned Whitt.com. I've owned Whitt.com for 26 years. And that's exactly the same thing here. Everybody who poo-poos on buying NFT land are the same people that poo-pooed buying .com, or at the time, .com and .net and .org were really the only three back in 1995 and 96. Here's the answer that every real estate broker and every celebrity that you see on $1 Million Listing will tell you. Every real estate purchase is smart if you give it enough time.
Does location matter here? Is it the location of the domain or the name? Does location matter here?
Yeah, location.
Yeah, that's real estate.
If you translate the concept of location to the word association, then it absolutely matters. And so if your NFT is associated with high traffic, celebrity, those types of concepts, exactly like physical location applies in real estate, then without a doubt, location matters with NFTs in the metaverse. But I keep going back. It all depends on your time horizon. With a long enough time horizon, every NFT purchase could be profitable. There will be some that's never profitable. I mean, if you bought land in wherever the cloud path of Chernobyl's blast was, that land will never be valuable, probably for the next 100,000 years. And so it's not like that every time frame is. I'm just saying that if you have a diversified enough portfolio with NFT virtual land sales, and you give it enough time, it will be. But if you have a short-term time frame, which I believe almost everybody who's buying NFT lots have, probably not a good purchase unless it's for entertainment value. And then if you spend up to your tolerance for entertainment, go for it.
All right. Who's going to be the winner in the metaverse? Is it going to be Facebook Meta?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I get asked that a lot, Sam. And whenever I was advising internet companies in 97, 98, 99, and 2000, I got asked that so much of the time. And so I'll ask you, do you know a company named Webvan? Do you know a company called 3Com? Or do you know a company named Commerce One? We don't know any of those three names, but those were three of the hottest stocks in 1999. And if you were to ask who's going to win, they would have been mentioned in the same breath as Yahoo. And do you know who two names that would not have been mentioned in 99? A company
Google,
named
Facebook.
Google.
Yeah.
Well, Facebook didn't even exist.
Didn't even exist. I would say Google.
But Google and Amazon would not have been listed in those. But Commerce One, 3Com, Qualcomm, even the hardware manufacturer, and Webvan, all would have been listed as to win. I actually think that it's going to be more along the lines of the companies that have content or infrastructure, because one of the things that you could have bet on in 1999 is Disney. One of the companies that you could have bet on in 1999 was Akamai, and they of course provide CDN and infrastructure technologies. Those are the companies that you can bet on. However, I'm not saying that they're going to be the biggest winners. I'm just saying that they're the most likely to win. The real winners are probably going to be the companies that come out of left field. The companies like Snapchat. No one predicted Tesla. No one predicted Snapchat. No one predicted Facebook. MySpace was the king of everything in 2004 and 2005, and before
Friendster,
that was
I think there's something called Friendster. Yeah,
Friendster.
I remember we were all in it. Yeah.
I was just going to miss that. So who's going to win in the metaverse? It's almost always going to be the companies that provide the things of value. They're going to control it. So who wins in Hollywood? Is it MGM? Is it Fox Productions? Or is it Paramount? Kind of, but not really. It's really the content. It's really the shows. It's the creators. It's the actors. Those are the ones that have the longevity.
Mhm.
Great. So what about Jeremy? Tell us a little bit about Promethean Group and what do you do in this metaverse field? I think our audience would like to really know.
Yeah. So Promethean Group focuses on something that we call the 3 A's. And the 3 A's are augmented reality, artificial intelligence, automation. And automation, of course, is the entire category of robotics, whether it be the reason I chose automation instead of robotics is because I believe that the concept of autonomous control and robotics goes not only in the physical world, but also in the metaverse, in software. And so there are millions of robots around the planet that that do amazing tasks, but there are billions on the internet that do amazing things as well as nefariously bad things. But those are the 3 A's, and that's what Promethean Group does. Promethean Group is an early stage venture. We do targeted interventions on all of our investments. And we have a portfolio of investments that are all mobile cloud tech, mobile or cloud tech. All of them are cloud tech, some of them are mobile, and almost all of them have some connection to the metaverse, whether it be content that goes on to the metaverse, whether it be infrastructure that is around the metaverse and things of that nature. So we take early stage positions and we do targeted interventions to create our advantage for creating additional alpha with our placements.
How do people find you? What's the website address, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yep, www.prometheangroup.com. And if I switch to the side, there's the brand ID, prometheangroup.com. And of course, Prometheus was the child of Zeus who brought fire to man, and was of course banished for doing so. But that's an analogy of exactly what Promethean Group does. Is fire is a basic and fundamental but extremely vital concept, and that's exactly what Promethean Group does with our targeted interventions in all of our private placements.
I have one last question for you, Jeremy. If I'm, somebody young that wants to learn more about the metaverse, wants to get engaged, wants to build for, what advice would you give?
Yeah. Be fearless. Be fearless and be indiscriminate. That's the best advice ever. You need to not worry about where's everybody hanging out. You need to not worry about, is this going to be cool? You need to not worry about, well, I don't really know that much, so should I get onto Discord or not? And Roblox seems to only be for kids. Do everything. Be fearless and be indiscriminate. There is so much happening now. It's exactly the same advice that I was given in the mid-90s when the internet came forward. It's exactly the same advice that I'm giving to every single person that asks that question, Sam. Be fearless, go out and do it. Get off the couch. It's the only way to do it. It's like fitness. The 90% of the problem is getting off the couch.
Right. I think this time around, though, I mean, if I kind of go back in time, really having a deep understanding of all the different things that are happening in the space, NFTs, blockchain, crypto, having surface level kind of understanding of things used to work. I think this time around, it's a little bit different. And I think a lot of people feel the same way, really understanding how all these different pieces come together to build this new decentralized world, I think is interesting. Any resources that you think people should be, watching, reading, to kind of help with their adventure, so to speak?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, the first is obviously subscribe to this podcast. This is probably the first and foremost. No, I'll kind of take a little different slant on this.
Sure.
And here's why. There's so much bias, targeted, or limited information, limited being bounded information out there if you do your Google searches and things of that nature. I'm going to take a little bit different slants. I think the best thing for you to do from a resource perspective is learn how to do it. And that's what I told people back in the mid-90s is everybody wanted to learn about the internet, but they didn't want to build a web page.
Sure.
And I said, the best way to learn about the internet is to build a web page. That's why I would strongly encourage the best resource is go out and mint an NFT. First, buy an NFT. Go buy something. Don't spend very much money. Spend $10 or $20. Go out and build. Go out and build an island at Meta Island. Well, I guess it's not launched yet, but wherever you can find, whether it's Horizon World or Sandbox or whatever, go out and build. The reason is because the resources and research and reading and knowledge that you have to gain in order to do that is going to be so much better than any blog post or someone's article that they wrote that is probably a little bit biased, but it's probably very bounded and limited on its scope. But you'll be an expert if you just do that, just like in 1995, if you just went out and figured out how to fire up a server with an ISP and FTP your HTML up to the server. You learned so much more than going, well, back then you went to Walden Books or Borders Books and bought a book or something along those lines, because there was no search engines, there was no Google or anything like that. But that's my best advice for you, is go do it. But that's just the beginning. NFTs actually encapsulate the concept of ownership, and that is so vital in the metaverse, where there aren't additional laws. You can't physically see or physically touch. You can certainly see them, but you can't physically touch or take with you and things of that nature. So the future of the metaverse, I believe, is going to be driven by NFTs and the way that they associate ownership with digital assets. And that is the true value of NFTs, not Bored Apes and not high-priced JPEGs and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Thank you so much. I think we can conclude, right? We have run out of time.
I think so. Jeremy,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being on our second edition of the Tech Collective. Really, really insightful discussion today, and really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. Promethean Group, Jeremy Whitt, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Sam. And I just want to conclude by saying that all these that we talked about today regarding virtual reality, augmented reality, or simply on a screen, the promise of the metaverse is to allow a greater overlap of our digital and physical lives in socialization, productivity, shopping, entertainment. And when these worlds are interwoven with no headset required, I think we've won the battle, because right now there is that, the Oculus, all of that we think about when we think, right? Think about the Uber app telling us location data, how far away the car is. The Netflix, where, they'll tell you based on they'll suggest series and movies based on your suggestion. At its core, the metaverse is an evolution of our current internet. And it gives us an opportunity to create any universe that we've ever imagined. It's kind of scary, like the yacht, because I'd rather be in the real yacht.
But exciting too.
So the metaverse isn't just about the VR headsets and smart glasses, and it's an attempt to redefine our entire relationship with the internet, from virtual communities to ownership of digital content, gaming, cryptocurrency, NFTs, 3D, so much that we've probably haven't even scratched the surface yet, and it's not all seamless. And the metaverses are not connected as like 95, the internet when it came about. But
it's going to be an interesting future.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting and scary future. Metaverse is an embodied internet where instead of just viewing the content, we are actually going to be in it, Sam, in your yacht. Which is not going to be as fun as the real thing, let me tell you. It is being described as a persistent digital world that is inhabited by digital twins of people, places, and things. And I hope I've been able to summarize it based on the conversation we had today. And I hope our audience have learned a little bit, and I've learned a lot from both Sam and Jeremy. And just like Jeremy said, be fearless. Thank you, everybody. And
thank you.
Thank you so much. And signing off, and take care. Bye.
Good stuff. Bye-bye.